Nigeria launches action plans to tackle antimicrobial resistance.
Kogi State appeals for a national solution to flooding in its environs.
NDLEA arrests Canada-based nurse with illicit drugs.
And on Good Morning Nigeria today, we shall discuss the 30th Economic Summit and the way forward for Nigeria's economy.
The Nigeria Economic Summit Group was established in 1993 with a mandate to promote and champion the reform of the Nigerian economy into a modern, global, competitive, sustainable, inclusive, open economy.
Now, this non-profit organization is a group of concerned private sector leaders representing key economic sector where they conceived the Nigerian Economic Summit and sustained it as a platform for bringing together private sector leaders and senior public sector officials to discuss and dialogue on the future of the Nigerian economy.
That's true, Jumai. Over the years, the NESG has achieved significant progress in the areas of research, outputs, execution of programs, seminars, conference, and workshops aimed at facilitating the formulation and implementation of social and economic reform programs for the growth and transformation of the Nigerian economy.
And at the 30th NESG Summit, several submissions were made on Nigeria's economy. For instance, President Tinubu made a case for a more diversified economy, reiterating current efforts towards achieving this, as well as a more resilient economy through the Renewed Hope agenda.
Other issues mentioned at the summit include the projection of a 3.3% economic growth for Nigeria in 2024 and 3.6% next year.
Indeed, and another issue I must also mention is the emphasis made on keeping to Nigeria's revised National Development Plan.
So, 31 years since it began proffering solutions to Nigeria's economic issues, what has the journey been like for Nigerian Economic Group? What challenges have impeded the implementation of its recommendations? How will the group's latest submissions at its 30th summit make the desired impact? We have guests joining us shortly to respond to these questions. Welcome to the program. The first in the week, I am Ademola Adeoye.
And I am Jumwa Yusuf. I also welcome you to the program. We have our newspaper reviewer, Chukudi Okolo Ubaja. He'll be joining us in a moment. But for now, let's join Mina Daniel for the news. Good morning, Mina.
Good morning, Jumai and Ademola. Good morning, Nigeria. Here is the news. Nigeria is set to address the global challenge in antimicrobial resistance as the federal government, through the Nigerian Center for Disease Control and CDC, launches National Action Plan 2.0 for antimicrobial resistance and genomic surveillance strategy in Abuja. Coordinating Minister of Health and Social Welfare, Professor Ali Pate, said the action plan is part of fulfilling Nigeria's commitment at the last United Nations General Assembly in New York.
Of our work, and the plan that has been laid out focuses on building our capacity for not only detection and surveillance, improving our response to emerging infections. We are building a future where every Nigerian will benefit from enhanced healthcare, improved disease prevention, and stronger health security.
And 2 businessmen, as well as a Canada-based nurse, have been arrested by the operatives of the National Drug Law Enforcement Agency, NDLEA, at the Murtala Mohammed International Airport, Ikeja, Lagos, for attempting to import different types of illicit drugs through the airport. One of the suspects frequents Thailand, from where he claims to be importing fish for Nigeria, was arrested on Tuesday, 15th of October 2024, while attempting to board a flight to Thailand. When he was taken for body scan, the result showed that he ingested illicit drug, which proved to be cocaine, and as a result, he was placed under exclusion observation, during which he expelled 5 ecstasy wraps of cocaine weighing 400 grams. In the same vein, a 26-year-old businessman also excreted a pallet of cocaine weighing 22 grams. The suspect revealed that he was to be paid 2.5 million naira for trafficking the drug. Kogi state government says creation of dams in the confluent state of Kogi, Niger and Benue states, as well as dredging of the rivers, can permanently put to rest the perennial flooding being experienced every year across the area and beyond. The state governor, Usman Ododo, made the appeal to the federal government when he received search and rescue team of the National Emergency Management Agency, NEMA, led by its Director General, Zubaida Omar. The governor was said to be represented by the state deputy governor, Joel Salifu.
Instructed to at least reduce the influx of this water from Benue and the River Niger. I think it will help us to some extent.
And that's the news at this time. Good morning, Nigeria continues with GMN and Adomola shortly after this break.
Set to host leaders and future leaders in Africa and across the globe at the 11th African Biblical Leadership Initiative Conference under the distinguished chairmanship of His Excellency Chief Olusegun Obasanjo, GCFR. Venue, Nigerian Air Force Conference Center, Abuja. Date, October 21st to 24th, 2024. Time, 9 a.m. daily. Theme, Value-Based Leadership, Model for Africa. To be addressed by erudite speakers from within and outside the country. Special guest of honor, Her Excellency Senator Oluremi Tinubu, CON, First Lady of Nigeria. Youths who desire to attend the Youth Assembly on October 24th should register at abley.biblesociety-nigeria.org. For inquiries, call the numbers now showing on your screen. Abley Nigeria 2024, Raising Value-Based Leaders.
Is here. Congratulations!
Do not waste time. Put your baby to breast within the first 1 hour of delivery to give that first yellowish milk colostrum. Colostrum has all the important nutrients your baby needs to start a healthy life. Colostrum also helps to protect your baby against diseases. Remember, put your baby to breast within the first 1 hour of delivery. This message is from the ANRIN Project, Federal Ministry of Health.
On the 25th of October 2024, Air Peace marks its 10-year anniversary, a significant milestone in the aviation sector in Nigeria. For a decade, Air Peace has stayed committed to providing world-class services to passengers home and abroad. With just 7 aircraft in 2014, to becoming the largest airline in West Africa. Despite the challenges over the years, Air Peace continues to revolutionize air travel, adding new destinations and fleets to support millions of travelers across the globe. Air Peace is pleased to announce the attendance of Vice President Senator Kashim Shettima, a special guest of honor, other dignitaries including former President Olusegun Obasanjo as guest of honor, and Minister of Aviation and Aerospace Development Festus Keyamo, governors of the Federating States of Nigeria, including Governor Babajide Sanwo-Olu, as host governor. Air Peace has also put together the best in Afrobeats, including Grammy-nominated star Davido, Flavor, Casey, and a night of inspirational songs with Timi Dakolo, Adaehi, Mirabel Chisholm, and Efezino. Air Peace proudly serves over 20 domestic destinations within Nigeria, 7 international routes, and 10 regional locations. We thank Nigerians for their support on October 25th at the Echo Hotel and Suites. See you there.
TerraQ, unwrap joy, unleash taste.
Nivea Dry Deodorant with 72-hour reliable odor protection from dual effect formula for a dry and fresh skin feeling that gives you confidence every day. Nivea Dry is now available in 25 ml for 72-hour odor and sweat protection.
In a world hungry for goodness, with a splash of golden Terra oil, a mom can transform a frown into a smile. Make a lunch hour a happy hour. Change no thanks into yes please. Provide care when our nearest and dearest needs it most. And resolve family feuds without blowing a whistle. Providing tasty, nourishing family meals is all that matters. The world needs moms, because where there are moms, there is hope, happiness, and love. Golden Terra Oil, for pure love.
Some say learning is fun, but as a mom, I see how demanding it can be for my child. That's why I ensure he starts every day with a cup of Bonvita. Bonvita, prepare them to win every day.
Imagine lovely meals you can cook with these ingredients. You spend heavily, but no guarantee of a tasty meal. Not making a right choice of seasoning cube can ruin your meal, money, and confidence. For a tasty meal, do not compromise. Choose Gold.
Use Terra Gold for the rich, consistent taste your loved ones crave for. Good for soups, stews, and jollof. Terra Gold. 1 cube, endless possibilities.
Thanks for staying with us. You're still on to Good Morning Nigeria on the network service of the NTA. Up next is newspaper review.
Our newspaper reviewer Chukwudi Okolo Baja is in the studio. Good morning.
Good morning.
It's a beautiful morning.
How are you?
Fine.
Good to see you again.
Good to see you.
We've started a bright week.
Yes.
Hopefully, let him finish the job.
Yeah.
Demo, how are you doing?
Great. Another wonderful week.
Yes. We are thinking alike.
Yes.
Good morning.
Good morning. Let's quickly go to the papers. I have the People's Daily. I'll begin with it. And above the masthead, no, just below the masthead, UK deports 44 Nigerian, Ghanaian asylum seekers in largest ever single flight. Abductors of ex-Taraba Council boss demand 60 million naira. And at the bottom plate of the People's Daily, Obasanjo donates 10,000 hearing aids to Northeast states. Details on page 14. Northern Group seeks justice over killings of Northerners in Southeast. Find the details on page 10. Jigawa Assembly, UNICEF target to reduce 90% of over 700,000 out-of-school children. Find details on page 8. Why I rejected Obi as presidential candidate. That's coming from Wiki. You want to know why? You go to page 15. And the headlines in the People's Daily. Troops rescue 8 kidnapped travelers in Benue. With riders, our eyes set on ending insecurity. That is coming from the defense minister. Let's quickly go to the Blueprint newspaper now. And above the masthead, we have better days ahead under Tinubu administration. Akpabio assures. Details on page 19. And below the masthead, only 17% of SDGs healthcare target on track. That's coming from the World Health Organization. You find the details on page 14. Super Eagles star Boniface survives auto crash after team's victory. You find the details on page 32. Thank God for that. And the headlines in the Blueprint newspaper. Mob action, jungle justice on police personnel, worry IGP. He orders probe. With riders, inspector slain in Edo quarry attack. Okada riders kill officer in Lagos. Anambra court clash claims 24 in Rivers gunmen attack. And reports of Lagbaja's death, fake news. That's coming from the army. Army clarifies. You find the details on page 8. 20 million out-of-school children recruitment ground for Boko Haram. That's coming from the former president Olusegun Obasanjo as he donates hearing aids in Bauchi and commissions projects. At the bottom plate of the Blueprint newspaper, telecom subscribers push for 10% tariff hike to avert service decline. Telecom subscribers push for 10% tariff hike to avert service decline. Details on page 22. Relief items, flood committee verifies 55,000 Borno households. Details on page 18. Naira up 2.4% on CBN's $600 million intervention. Details on page 23. 2 schoolgirls confirmed dead in Ebonyi gas explosion. You find that on page 8. And the picture story you see there, former First Lady Dame Patience Jonathan, former President Goodluck Obele Jonathan, former President Olusegun Obasanjo, First Lady Mrs. Oluremi Tinubu, former Head of State General Yakubu Gowon retired, and his wife Mrs. Victoria Gowon at a Thanksgiving service to commemorate the 90th birthday of General Gowon in Abuja on Saturday.
You're done?
Yeah, I'm done.
Okay, I have the Vanguard newspaper with me, and just above the nameplate, we have Mogalu appointed president, African School of Governance. Details on page 8. CSOs kick as police arrest disperse NSAS memorial protesters. Details on page 6. Gowon at 90, Obi replies critics, says Nigeria needs love, forgiveness to move forward. Details on page 8. And the major headline reads, federal government's zero duty food import policy faces fresh hurdles. And we have customs agent hint at confusion among implementation agencies, inflation exchange rate, defeat policy objectives, analyst, and policy not optimal. Details of that story can be found on page 21. And scores killed in Anambra Rivers court clashes. 4 killed, including policeman in Edo attack. Details on page 6. Then we have these DSS replaces Tinubu's CSO Fasasi with Rashid Lawal. The NAS proposes reintroduction of 5% excise duty on telecom betting services. Serap to Tinubu stop weaponizing security against security agencies against Nigerians. And in sport, we have Libyan wants Libya punished for Super Eagles maltreatment. Details of that story can be found on sports page 36. And the Mr. and Mrs. And the minister says, I transfer 130,000 to your account. But right there in my presence at the shopping mall, you spent 100,000. Let me have the rest. And the wife replies, that little amount is called palliative.
Yes, sir.
Whenever you are broke, it becomes subsidy. If you take it from me now, it becomes subsidy removal.
Yes, sir.
There are already economic evil forces coming from outside. Why would there now be home trouble for the man? You know, in the shape of what the woman is doing to aggravate a very bad situation. Please, they should behave like one couple.
I'm telling you.
You know, tackling the same issues. You know, that Libyan that said that Libya should be punished for the way that they treated the Super Eagles, is a good man. You know, in those days in Africa, a truth teller was actually applauded. You know, there are certain things.
That was then.
Yeah, that was then. It reminds me of my friend's daughter, really. A man was coming to see my friend. As the man noticed the friend, you know, do the corner, she told them, tell him I'm not in. The daughter opened her mouth. She managed to stifle the truth. Immediately the person left. He said, Daddy, all liars shall go to hell. He shouted on her. Don't you know I'm your father?
But he lied.
He lied. You know,
lied.
There are no small lies in the world. So that truth teller, Libyan truth teller, God bless him. To more serious matters now. We hear that the FG's zero duty food import policy faces fresh hurdles. And you begin to ask yourself, is it true then that some of the things that happen to us are a result of nauseating bureaucracy? How could agencies be confused in the process of implementing what government wants them to do? Whom are they serving at the end of the day? Those bottlenecks should not rear their heads at all.
Actually, that's the problem. You know, we've always been having that problem at the ports, actually.
Yes.
When we have multiplicity of agencies.
Exactly.
At the port, and they are the one, you know, creating bottlenecks, and the turnaround time for cargo, you know, is delayed as a result of all these agencies.
Yes.
So
but some of them actually need to be there.
Some of them are necessary
but
tools, you know, on the field of campaign.
Yes.
But some of them may not need to be there. That's the point we're making.
So
you
that's
know?
just the question. So maybe the policy needs to be explained to them. For them to get the proper implementation. But I think it's custom, actually, that is responsible for them.
Yes, the citizens should not be given the impression that the government lied.
They shouldn't give
That's
custom
the bottom line.
The problem.
You're not giving the government a good image. So we don't want to hear those excuses. How would hunger wait for, you know, administrative and, you know,
bottleneck to be settled?
Yes, because Nigerians are desperately waiting for food prices of food to come down with that weather.
It's not the best.
Still, it's just escalating. The price is just going up every single day. 1 second, it's 1,000 naira. You come back in the next minute, it's 1,500 naira.
Yes, quickly, before I talk about mob action, jungle justice, and police worry IGP. Let me quickly address 20 million out of school children recruitment ground
for Boko
Haram. That's coming from Obasanjo. Obasanjo is always in the news. Anyhow, he's handling a very important matter. The other time, I said it was nauseating that President Goodluck Jonathan in those days helped to build Amajiri schools and politics pushed it to the back burner. Now we are all paying for it. You know, there's this tiny-mindedness of people thinking, that then them affair now for nothing they happen. No, it will go get across the country. To actually solve that problem, we all need to cooperate.
We need to go back to the status quo. Actually, when we're growing up in Maiduguri, I remember you go from your house to the school, from the school to your house. Yes. You know, Almajiris were not that much. They were very few. You know, I think there's a need to look into this issue, and if your child can read from home, it is better, because the way they are abandoned, they go there, they are abandoned, they grow up under the elements, they become heartless, they have no empathy because of the way they are treated. And even, you know, during this flood, I keep asking people, I say, all the Almajiris in Maiduguri that sleep on the street, the flood came in the night. Have they been checked? Do they know how many kids
They
at the
are
the
human
flood
and
has
should
gone
be
with?
treated like
Yes.
human beings.
Do they know how many children the flood has gone with? Are they accounted for? That is the million. I keep asking people in Maiduguri, have you done a research on how many of these children have been taken away by the flood? Because some of them sleep on the streets. And they have not been accounted for.
Thank you so much.
Yes.
Thank you.
I keep asking these questions and I'm not getting answers.
You're a better analyst than me. Look, nobody should joke with the life of the Chief of Army Staff. It is not African. If the man is critically ill, he is critically ill, and that should elicit our sympathy. We shall all go anyway. Today is Chukwudi, tomorrow is Demona's
We'll all
turn.
die at one point. Nobody is here to live forever.
Maggots are waiting for each and every one of us. So why do a bazaar concerning the supposed death of another? What do you gain from it? How can you have a phone? I think it is phones plus idle minds that create fake stories. You know, it's unfortunate.
Well, telecom subscribers push for 10% tariff. I think people will stop sharing all this bad news because when you keep sharing, your data is going too at the same time. So if there's a 10% tariff hike to avert service decline, well, people will have to sit up.
Look at the kind of messages we're receiving on WhatsApp at a point. There was a time they were saying 200 Indian Christians were going to be burnt the next day. That one trended for about 2 years. I say, tomorrow never comes for these 200 Indians that are going to be burnt.
Okay. All right. Chooks, thank you.
I suspected the way you were looking at me.
Time has been up the past 2 minutes or so.
The director has been signaling that we should just call it a day on this segment. So we'll take a break now. The conversation will kick off after the break. Stay with us.
We'll have another topic?
That will be after
the
this.
break, yes.
As your president, I assure you that we are committed to finding sustainable solutions to alleviate the suffering of our citizens. Once again, I plead for your patience as the reforms we are implementing show positive signs, and we are beginning to see the light at the end of the tunnel.
What wakes you up in the morning? Is it the sunrise? Is it the alarm? No. It's your dream that wakes you every day. It's what drives you like a powerful engine. That's why you start strong every day with the rich, creamy taste of Nescafe 3-in-1, carefully crafted from selected coffee beans. You are on your hustle, and you won't stop until you succeed. Start strong. Finish strong.
TerraQ, unwrap joy, unleash taste.
Diadem family! We go hear am today.
Back then I used to be Rasaki, but now I'm rebranded. Call me Shek, you can call me no guest.
How did you meet your lovely wife?
It was an amazing journey.
Adewale, mention a characteristic of a deceitful person.
Cheating. Yakoni. Pretense.
You're selfish.
The counsel of our fathers.
My advice to these young people is please do not take us back to those harrowing days. You probably do not know what it is.
Nigerian youths, let's build our nation together.
Nigeria means a lot to me.
And Nigeria means peaceful cohesion.
My country.
We continue to pray, and then hopefully we will come to understand that unity of purpose, unity of living together.
Our ethnic beliefs and background and culture is our strength.
Ever since the amalgamation period of 1914 to date, about 109 years ago, the people of Nigeria live very peacefully with one another.
I think diversity helps a lot to enhance robust development in Nigeria.
All over the country, you have so many ethnic groups, over 250. That is enough to tell you that this is a blessed country, and God has kept, together as one indivisible entity.
You're watching Good Morning Nigeria on the network service of the NTA. And to begin our conversation this morning on Nigeria Economic Summit Group and the way forward for Nigeria's economy, here's a background report by Oyeyemi Ajayi.
The 38th Nigerian Economic Summit is a landmark event that convenes regional and global leaders from government, business, civil society, social sector, and academia. It aims to address the current trajectory of the regional and global economy and emphasizes the need for collaborative action to tackle pressing challenges. This year was the 38th edition of the annual event with the theme Collaborative Action for Growth, Competitiveness and Stability, and it is meant to chart a better course for economic growth and thus reflects why the gathering of prominent leaders from public and private sectors to explore the nation's pressing economic challenges and lay a foundation for sustainable development. With different sideline events and series of papers presented, the target is to boost economic growth with improved standard of living. In his speech, the Nigerian President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, represented by his vice Kashim Shettima, extolled the need to prioritize economic diversification, emphasizing that his administration, through the Renewed Hope agenda, has embarked on bold and courageous reforms designed to create an environment that fosters sustainable economic growth and shared responsibility. Citing that the focus is on sectors that can offer inclusive and sustainable growth, such as agriculture, manufacturing, and digital economy. On his part, the Minister of Finance and Coordinating Minister of the Economy, Wale Edun, presented a roadmap towards ensuring Nigeria's macroeconomic stability and growth under the present administration. Now, as much as a lot were talked about, many anxiously wonder if things discussed will be actually effected towards a better nation. Also, will this chart a better way forward for Nigeria's economic growth and prosperity? Our guest already seated in the studio will be answering these questions and more shortly.
You're welcome back. Thank you, Oyeyemi Ajayi, for that background report. And we already have in our studio our guest that will be discussing the 30th Economic Summit, Way Forward for Nigeria's Economy. First, let me just introduce Yushau Aliyu, an economist. Yushau, you're welcome, as usual.
Thank you. Good morning, Nigeria.
Good morning.
Thank you.
Also is Dr. Emeka Okengu, a development economist. Good to have you again.
Pleasure to be
Good
here.
to have you.
It's
All
an
have
honor.
regulars in the studio today. And yes, we have another guest who will be joining us when
Much
the Zoom
later.
network, much later when the Zoom network improves.
So let's just start with this question. What can you tell us about this summit group?
Well, like the intro had said, it's a group of interested parties, if you may, okay, parties of interest, as they say, that come together to evaluate, review, profile advisories. Okay, it's not a constitutional body, as it were, but somehow, you know, because of the kind of caliber of people that attend or participate, some key policy issues or pronouncements are usually made and discussed. And so from time to time, these advisories are also published. You know, they evaluate from their own perspective, you know, the state of the Nigerian economy, what they think should happen, how they think is happening, you know, the fault lines, the red lines, and then, you know, the way going forward.
But I mean, you've been a member of this summit, and from your experience, what would you say are the takeaways actually from the summit and the impact on Nigeria's economic growth?
Well, you see,
has there been any impact at all?
It's very important that in discussing the Nigerian economic growth, you disaggregate, you know, the components. If you don't do that disaggregation, if you take them under one fair swoop, you might mistake it. And for me, I'd like us to look at it from maybe 4 broad angles. Okay, what you call the public, which everybody, you know, governance. What you call the private, what you call the informal, and what you call the underground. Okay, to a very large extent, the informal you can see, but the underground is where you don't even see anybody at all. And this is where you have what they call the real sector. Okay, and unfortunately, this is where the bulk of Nigerians are, right? But because we've not been able to build what you call reliable, usable statistics, okay, of life and death, birth and death of Nigerians, it becomes very difficult for you to now do a holistic, one-off interpretation of the state of the Nigerian economy. Do you understand what I'm saying now? So because this is where you now begin to now list some people as masses of Nigeria. And it's one word I think is an aberration in the 21st century, that you call anybody a mass. Masses. But the citizens, for you to be a citizen, the difference is identification. Why that word masses is used is that it's a mass of people, faceless as it were. But the moment it comes to citizenry, and this is why a lot of our social programs, are having challenges. Government recognizes that you have millions of people, that are needing help and intervention, and then you have only capacity and ability to be able to maybe reach 10,000 people. And this was why, that's what do they call it now? The compendium, the vulnerable statistics that was started by the World Bank and then transferred to the Federal Ministry of Finance then, and then later to the Office of Vice President. And there were 6 consultants that were captured under that YESO program when the first 6 states, when they were talking about that single register, and I happened to be one of them, and I covered the state of Kogi. So point I'm trying to make is that the absence of that data, that record, okay, has also created a lot of issues, because between 2015, when that project was handed over to government, till now, by statistics, empirical, and assumed, our poverty, levels has quadrupled. So that means that a lot more people have gotten onto that vulnerable and then masses, characterization. And yet you don't have any documentation that can be able to classify them. I'm making this long explanation so you can be able to understand where the issues are. That if you want to talk about the formal economies, you go to CAC, they give you all the companies. give you the statistics, give you who the directors are, give you their status and all that. If you use that as a basis, okay, of doing your analysis, you might be, missing out a very large chunk.
So so what you are telling us now is that the underground are the informal sector.
No, under informal.
Under informal.
Yes, the informal are probably, the people who are running the supermarkets, the gardens, the eateries, and all that. There are people who wake up in the morning and they need to go and look for firewood to fry akara before they can earn a living.
So those ones are the under.
And they are the under that are not even captured
at all.
At all. Okay, if you're passing the express now and you stop your car, you see people racing after your car. Some are carrying, they'll carry plumber, electrician, this, that. There's no system. Okay, if a man comes to your house and runs away with anything there's no way you can begin to trace him. Not from his habitation, not from his office location, not from any data of any sort.
Okay.
That's the sector that is mostly not accounted for. You've mentioned the private sector, informal and on the ground. And let's bring in Yusho Aliu into this conversation. As an economist, I'm sure you must have been following the summits year in, year out to see how they shape the trajectory of economic development for the country. And they bring out suggestions, they bring out deliberations that they've had at the summit. And how do you think that government has been responsive to the submission given by the summit group? And one thing I would love to ask you is, do you think they've really made an impact in shaping the trajectory of the economy? As every country has a think tank that thinks about how the economy should go.
I think one thing that has to be clear in the first instance is to understand the nature and the complex activities of economic groupings, including Summit Group is one. There is Nigerian Economic Society too. I have been following them, and when you take the output from these conferences and summit, you understand that each and every summit group is presenting its own perspective to the economic prospect of Nigerian economy. If we take that at a yardstick, then you understand that the summit group is very strategic from inception to present, but unfortunately some of the dreams that has been projected is not coming to fruition for many reasons. One is that from the outcome, it's a group of experts from the public, private, discussing how the trajectory of our growth rate is going to behave, and what is necessary for the economy, and whether the economy is healthy as at present or not. And if it is healthy, right perspectives are also identified. But in my own opinion, based on what transpired from the different summits as conducted, is that we don't take deep insight into the economic environment itself, because there are macroeconomic aggregates that are very necessary. These macroeconomic aggregates are easily identified. From the summit, there was no much discussion on the effect of inflation to purchasing power of consumers in that same economy, and it has not also relayed more emphasis as why there is high unemployment, which is rampant in the economy. But the summit was able to look at the target growth based on government policy. So for you to put an economy to a right shape, remember the missing link in all our analysis is collective prosperity.
Why is it missing?
It is missing because interest of business community is being discussed, interest of government policies is being discussed, but unfortunately, interest of the key stakeholders in the economy is not considered. And that is why I said from the outcome of the summit, you realize that some of the economic disturbances which is affecting growth is not clearly discourse, because once you now bring expert within the public's realms, and you, Vice President was there, and if we bring also expert professionals from the professional background, the World Bank was there, and if you take a look now, who is representing the informal sector, particularly, I am expected to see the trade union being represented in the summit group. I'm expecting the clerics and also who are very influential as far as determining how environment can be more peaceful is attended. And it is not also clearly spelled out how political parties must also be stakeholders, because in a democratic settings, you look at certain parameters of leadership. These parameters of leadership must include political structures. And if you are discussing economy, because by nature of all political parties arrangement, you have to present your economic manifesto for you to campaign for offices. If we begin to use this avenue to project, what do you have? How do you understand the economy? Did you even understand the tension and pressures in the economy? These are things that must be discussed. Economies of third world nation or emerging economies require this summit group.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, let me ask you. You said that the major challenges of the economy were not being discussed. From your own perspective, what are the major challenges of Nigeria economy right now, and how do you think they can be addressed?
The greatest challenge facing Nigerian economy is insecurity of our production lines, if you discuss agriculture. Second is energy. At the time that we are discussing Economic Summit Group, national grid was collapsing sequentially. And there is no way manufacturing can thrive perfectly when you have disturbances in the supplies. These are fundamental in one aspect. The second aspect is high cost of borrowings, the interest rate. You know, I maintain that stage because it is my opinion. And when you study different macroeconomic ingredients being applied in different economies, you realize why certain policy, monetary policy adjustments are attached to economy A or to economy A, B, or C. In our own, real stakeholders in this economy are complaining bitterly on increase in interest rate. Why? Because they need profit. And for them to have the margin of profit, they have to calculate all the variable costs attached to production of a single product in Nigeria. And once inflation also is going higher, purchasing powers of individuals is being eroded. So you now see a dual-edged sword, pushing MPR higher and then pushing consumption lower. So these are some of the things that I thought maybe probably the Economic Summit Group will present the central bank, will present the key stakeholders, the private sector, and then an avenue to brainstorm and then come out with a more desired policy that can suit the economy. Remember when MPR is being discussed, I quite agree. You can call for monetary values in terms of exchange rate so that you can have monetary stability. But what is more important is to protect the existing industries that are on ground, because the nature of market is no longer perfect. It is contestable. It is hit and run. So obviously when hit and run is mentioned, those who are putting on what you are looking for, they are putting it for short-run benefit, while the economy is looking for the long-run benefit, where you see reduction in inflation, reduction in unemployment, and then increase the GDP of the state, so that prospective investors will have more courage to invest in different diversified industries within that economy.
Including local
the local content is
yes,
there. That
local
is why
content.
we are complaining, because the local content of MPR is that if a manufacturer who is who has an attribute borrowing sums of money from a commercial bank in that economy 12 months ago at 20%, now is paying 27%, nobody would tell you that there is no way you bring price into a stable situation, because prices must be changing at the cost of variables are changing. And if they continue to change, definitely is either to affect the productivity or to affect the consumption. The consumption is affected when their income is eroded. And that is why this summit group is very important to brainstorm with the stakeholders and future policy makers. Some of us monitor them very effectively to a situation where we understand who are the participants and what is the outcome of what is being discussed in that parameter. And not only from that level, what level of inclusion does government give to that particular outcome? If the trajectory is to have 3.3 growth rate, what are the components that is required to bring that 3.3% growth rate? And what is the component that we are expecting to establish stability in general price? Because once you are out of general stability of prices, then definitely there will be distortion in consumption, and that distortion in consumption, if it is negative, definitely will affect the growth rate target.
Okay, and we already have our Zoom guest who is joining us from, I think it's Professor John Olatunji Alabi, President and Chairman Council, Institute of Classic Entrepreneur. You are welcome, Professor Olatunji.
Good morning, thanks for having me, and good morning, Nigerians.
I've been following the discussion on the, we're talking about the 30th Economic Summit, Way Forward for Nigeria's Economy. And this summit has been on since 1993, and I know that you've been part of it. If not, I mean, as an economist, you also must have been following their resolutions, their submissions, their meetings. From the summit, what do you think are the takeaways, and how beneficial do you think this summit is to the economy?
Very much. I want to say that Nigerian Economic Summit Group is an organization that I respect so much. I say this against the background of the fact that this is a private sector-led initiative that has been on for over 30 years. The founding fathers were clear in their intention, and it is to address economic issues and provide a template for which Nigeria can, move on into the desired perspective. And I want to say that the annual summit is a flagship of that activity. I followed since 1993, where I was doing my master's in the University of Lagos, the maiden edition. And I've realized that they have been very focused. I want to put on record that this annual summit is not only important for the government, the people, and the private sector, for all Nigerians. I recall with very, very sound appreciation what has happened in the last 30 years. I say with all sense of emphasis that most of the reforms we have seen, ranging from pension reform, banking reform, telecom reform, privatization policies, and all the various reforms we have seen across board, even in the maritime sector and the air sector, have been a direct result of the outcome of the various summit groups, because it is a conglomeration of stakeholders, private, government, international partners, and civil society. I want to say here also that the 30th edition is a big success because of the contributions we have mentioned, aforementioned. If you look at it, look at all the various jamborees you have by way of summits and summits. This seems to be more organized and articulate and inclusive because of the stakeholders that have been represented. If you recall very vividly, one of the summits, I recall, Central Bank were challenged to exit some of the activities we were doing, particularly the retail banking sector. It was 1995 or thereabout, or 1996, I can't remember. Because all over the world, Central Bank or Reserve Bank all over the world are not involved in retail activity. So these are cogent things. Now, they are provided that platform. They are provided also platform for feedback. When you have the outcome and you submit to government, in the next edition, you want to hear feedback from government, how it's been doing. Investment climates are also being enhanced through their activities. A lot of people would have come around and look at, oh, if this is the point of government and the government is saying we will adhere to some of the recommendations, that means we have a platform. So it is, even for the private sector itself, the outcome have been a challenge to them because in development balance, it is collaboration and partnership that brings development. So generally, I want to assess the 30-year and particularly this edition to say NSSG has they have provided us a very, very veritable, formidable platform for discussing and deepening issues that have to do with development. Year in, year out, they have addressed critical issues of the Nigerian economy. And most governments listen to them, except in some areas. Through their various, selected programs, I believe that they have done well because they have addressed those critical areas. You want to ask me, why is it that we are still in the doldrums, so to speak? I think that will not be at the doorstep of the Economic Summit Group, no. The recommendations over the years have been very up year in, year out. They have been very useful and relevant. They would have enabled Nigeria to reboot or reset or leapfrog economy to the Eldorado we desire. But I want to say that it is not the function of the NSDS group or the failure. It is the failure of leadership. Because where you have brought together several stakeholders, you have identified the critical issues in the economy. If it's poverty, you have dissected and identified who does what, when, and how, and you provided the parameters for such implementation. And you have provided even your experts' ideas, and you are ready to see the government do the same. If government is lethargic, if government is not coming forth to fully implement such, then the blame is not on the SGS group. The board of NGL group and the stakeholders have been very, very inclusive. As a private sector practitioner and an academician, I've witnessed virtually all, and I've seen that discussion has been fulfilled into several areas. But the leadership has been, it is my position that Nigeria is like the proverbial camel and its drunken riders. The camel bring the Nigerian economy, the riders, drunken riders, bring the Nigerian leaders. When a drunkard is intoxicated, policies are reeled out that are not okay. But when we have a level of insanity, you see development. So what we have had in the past is a camel and its drunken riders. So leadership has been the bane of what we have around. So I want to believe that we can have serious discussion around that. So far, so good. The economic summit have provided, yes, a platform for dialogue. It has provided opportunity for us to get feedback. It has provided opportunity for investors to see our industrial climate, and it has also provided opportunity for private sector to do that. So what we have now is to ensure that the policies are taken and implemented to the letter.
Yeah, okay, Professor, thank you very much for your contribution there. You said the Economic Summit has actually provided a platform for the public, private, and government to sit down on the round table to discuss the way forward. But can you tell us, I mean, some of these recommendations that you think have been preferred by the Economic Summit that were not properly implemented, and how do you think they should, I mean, the leadership should go about it, especially the last summit, which you said the recommendations were helpful?
Yes, first and foremost, the way forward to ensure that the outcome of the summit group and, of course, the government are on the same page is one, let's have a sustained, an NSDA group summit that will continually focus on national economy. It will require to ensure that feedback of previous ones are first dissected and assessed before we move on to the next one, particularly when you have some policy issues that have been recommended are not implemented. Challenge government on that. That's the first thing. The next thing to do is that how do we go on now to integrate the outcome of this summit into our national development plan? All I see most of the time is that the president or representative will come and say, all your recommendations shall be taken and we are all in it together. That is not enough. I want a situation where there will be either a National Assembly resolution or the Federal Assembly Council will invite the NSDA group to present and integrate that into the national development plan and programs of government. That is more pragmatic, that's more strategic to do than just issuing a policy statement that, oh, we will take it. I see that done, which is very, very important. Again, for the reforms, I think it is important for us to know that the reforms are good. As government says, oh, we are in the same page. I just listened to the president's address and said, oh, we need to get all what we require. In the words of President Tinubu, said, I think I heard it correctly, said, right policies, right partnership, and right commitments. Good. Right policies, right partnership, right. But on the flip side of it, for the NSDL group, we're saying our theme for this year is growth, competitiveness, and stability. Now, to marry these two together, therefore, it's important to sit at the table and say, what are those policies of government that will be necessary to ensure that the economy grows at the rate we want? Growth in terms of generation. I don't talk about GDP growth. My economics does not tell me that without employment. I want growth to employment. I want growth limited inflation. I want growth with inclusiveness. It's very important. Now, so we want to look at these policies of government, which of them will favor just GDP growth in terms of statistics and figures. But on the real sector dissection, what about inflation? What about employment? What about poverty? It's very important. For instance, now, the Renew Agenda talked about, growing the economy. But when you grow the economy and you are leaving carcasses behind, people are dying of hunger, or we have unemployment that is galloping, or inflation is spiral, then it is not growth. That is not growth in recent. The issue of competitiveness, fine. Thank God we have been reclassified from stable to growing the economy by the recent IMF. I'm skeptical. Each time the IMF and World Bank institution gives up for your economy, you worry because there are local peculiarities that need to be taken care of. If you have 7% growth rate, for instance, and people are wallowing in unemployment, that will be crisis. And social crisis will reverse the growth we are talking about. So I'm saying it's important, therefore, to look at competitiveness in terms of what is happening in the economy. The issue of stability is very important. I say to you today, walk through the streets of Nigeria and pick any commodity in our 800 hour this morning. Go by 10 a.m. in 2 hours. You are not sure. What is the problem? It does appear to me, therefore, that we need to think global and act local. So these are the way forward. One, sustain the dialogue, sustain the partnership with the NSGS group, ensure also that whatever policy outcome comes are integrated into the national programs and development through either legislation or through federal government executive council resolution. Also important that reforms are domesticated and localized, such that all the Bretton Woods institutions recommending do this, good for you in the long run. But in the long run, we are all dead. So what happens in the short run? I'm looking for where entrepreneurs, young youths, the vulnerables are taken care of more holistically in the plans of things. Thumbs up for Economic Group. I want to say that that is an organization I dove my heart for, and I love their outcomes. They have implementable strategies. I must say to you that people talk about they are elitists. They are not elitists. Most of the groups have breakout sessions. In breakout sessions, we have what to do, who does what, and you break it down into details. If government is interested, they can have a subcommittee of the think tank to come and tell them how to go about it. So we need to integrate it. And if we do it together, it will be a win-win. Right policies, very good. Right partnership, fantastic. Competitiveness, stability is good. But then we need to domesticate whatever it is we are doing. And Nigeria will be better for it. Renew hope. Hope should be renewed in real sense of it.
Yes, indeed, Professor Alabi, I like your submission and the fact that you say we should think global and act local. That is a good one there. And, you know, talking about reforms, which in the president's speech at the summit, he said reforms are there to make a stable economy stay the way it is so that it can grow. We cannot de-emphasize the critical and pivotal role of the summit in facilitating discussions so that they can shape the economy. We'll pause you there and come back to you later. Let's bring in Dr. Ekwengo into the conversation. Nigerians are faced with the stark reality that is no longer business as usual. Reforms are being churned out left, right, and center by this government, and all they say is that they need to stabilize the economy. So the protections Nigerians used to have before, most Nigerians used to have before, subsidies, all of them are being technically and practically removed. The summit has projected 3.3% increase in economic growth in 2024 and 3.6% in 2025. But one thing that, you know, struck me was the comment of the World Bank Senior Vice President Indemit Gill, where he said that Nigerians will have to go through what we are going through now, that I keep telling myself, calm down, Jume, most of the time, for the next 10 to 15 years. And while I was watching it online, I could see the reactions of Nigerians saying, no, this can't go on for 10 to 15 years. So what's your view on that?
You know, I belong to this professional body of economists, and it became a raging argument. Whereas some people thought it was a little callous of the World Bank, I was of the view that there was even a caveat to that statement. You know, they say you need to be, you know, you need to be very, very thorough. You need to be explicit. You need to focus. You need to keep the covenants, even for that length of time, for this to happen. Now, it does not necessarily mean that you're going to be throwing everybody into despondency. So let's look at what could be creating this despondency. Why is everybody feeling, you know, under this pressure? It is because you're paid a salary of 200,000, and then you get into a service station to go and get gas, and then you get 30 liters of gas and are drawing 40-something thousand out of that money. And then you start work on Friday or Monday. By Thursday, your car has gone into reserve. Now, what that means is that you are faced with this reality that the remaining 160-something thousand is going on fuel.
If it's still there.
If you need to go to work. Now, if you had a card And this is why I think that one of the greatest challenges we have today that is actually now, showcasing where these gaps are is our national transport infrastructure. If you had a transport system that could only allow you to do social visits with your car, the 30,000 you put into that vehicle could last you maybe for 4 or 5 weeks if you had access to city transport. Okay, if you could do park and ride. Okay, if you had trams, if you had buses, if you had trains. Now, and you had to only pay maybe 20,000 naira to get a travel card for 1 month. All right? So it is not all gloom. And remember again, I keep telling people that it's like us. There's a thin line between entitlement and rights. Okay?
How thin is the line?
It is so thin that we'll consider it sacrilegious for you, Demole, to ask your child who you train through school, who has gotten a job, to contribute, to the upkeep of a house. His mother will call the village on you. Okay? Everybody declares you a very wicked person. But in other climes, okay, it's a natural phenomenon. It's also even cruel for Ademola, who, for the emphasis I want to make, is a level 14 officer, married to a level 16 officer, and he says to Madam Parent, I'm your wife. That is where that thin line between that entitlement and right actually comes. Now, the reality on ground is that, yes, these are very tough decisions that's affecting everybody. Okay, but it's also now probably creating some sense of discipline, if you may. Okay, so however it is you want to look at it, some people will look at it as, oh, this is the end of the world. Some other persons also say, okay, my back is against the wall. I'm not going to enter into this world. Let me begin to push back. And what can I do to push back? So 15 years, if it takes us that, this is not the first time this 15 years has occurred. I remember in the days of Jonathan when he also publicly said, if I don't remove fuel subsidy, my government is going to collapse. The country will run into ruin. Now, if you check from the period that statement was made till today, it is 15 years.
Yes.
And we are slowly, steadily heading towards every pronouncement that was made if subsidies were not removed. This is where we are now. Now, everybody keeps talking about productivity. Productivity does not happen in computers. Productivity is a process, okay? And it has demands. Either you are doing missing productivity, in other words, you're importing, finished products as raw materials, okay? And then you're now competing with those finished products in the same market that the people who are supplying it to you as raw materials are supplying, and then you'll be very uncompetitive. So when you're talking about competitiveness, it's not English. That demands. And the first demand is your raw materials. I mean, elementary economics, we begin to tell you access to raw materials, infrastructure, access to this and all that and all that. So the point I'm trying to make is that in trying to make some very sweeping statements, sometimes that people make, we tend to be more politically correct than actually having this attitude of thinking things through. Understand it? Yes, yes. And this is where I think that when you talk about this building the Nigerian economy, we should be able to now look at those key MDAs that can actually own a lot of these advisories, that should be in the lead of these advisories. Okay, that should be able to now take it up, either present it as an executive bill or a national policy or whatever. Now, if we're able to identify that we have maybe 3 or 4 ministries, for me, marine and blue economy, very critical for 2 reasons. Now, not only are you talking about intermodaling transportation, you can actually take the marine and blue economy to the ECOWAS Protocol of 1975. Go and look at, the demands of that document. It was supposed to help us become regionally productive, not just in Nigeria. And then if you are able to now sink it down into Nigeria, we're also supposed to be creating a Nigeria that has common shared values. We're not supposed to be having a Borno state that is stuck to Borno State. Because I keep saying this, in the days of the Kano, granite pyramids, a lot of the farms, Kano land is not as fertile as Jigawa land. A lot of those peanuts were produced at the Jigawa angle, but Jigawa then was part of Kano.
Yes.
Now, today, if you were to go into agriculture, what is that collaboration that can be able to now support a relationship between Jigawa and Kano to now have common shared infrastructure? Now, marine and blue economy has the capacity to generate and support the power sector. Now, you come to science and technology, which I always focus on each time I talk about. So when you're talking about, professionals coming together to generate ideas, now, as long as these ideas are not captured in your covenants, they become what they are, advisory. Okay? When we were in the Vision 2020 and now the successor plans of a national, one of the things that some of us insisted is, let's have a legislation to this. In fact, at my state level, before the last administration came out, a group of us came together to evaluate the Abia State, 30-year master plan that was done by a private sector, or somebody did it for the state. Nobody had looked at it. And I called the then governor to say, please, from this report we have done for free, pro bono, go to the State House of Assembly and get this thing to become a law. Because if it becomes a law, the only thing you can do is to now review that law. Okay, and if you need to, repeal it, there'll be a process, and people can now be able to contribute to why it needs to be repealed or not. So we can keep there's so many groups profiling solutions. We talked about the dam thing here. All of us were here. We extensively dealt with what could happen with water spill. Then we talked about what could happen with flooding. These are all solutions. And then you come to Ministry of Agriculture and Food Security. So in this administration trying to couch what it is they want to do, I think I see some sense, I see some direction, clear direction. They changed the name of Ministry of Science and Tech and put innovation first. And innovation is where the challenge, the key is. If you're talking about energy sufficiency, okay, now this is where innovation comes in. There are new protocols that we can be able to begin to look at. So the point I'm trying to make is, you cannot be looking at the Nigerian economy from the perspective of economists. Okay, you must be looking at the Nigerian economy from the perspective of productivity and productiveness. Now, these are two different things. Okay, one, we require a Marshall Plan, what we call a blueprint.
Okay.
The other one, we require analysis. Okay, and evaluation. Those are not different.
But we have the National Development Plan.
Okay, if you have that National Development Plan, under which law is it captured? What are the milestones? Are they milestoned? Are they timelined? Okay, are there consequences for not, doing the things that National Development Plan says we must do? Who does them at what time? What's the relationship between these ministries and the subnationals? Okay, what are the relationship between our even if you got all these companies running, do you mind, and you don't have human capacity? If we didn't have all these guys who can be able to fix your cameras, you can dress all your nice, write all your nice English, and nobody will hear us. So when we're talking about physical infrastructure, it's also important that we look at that human capital, which is the primary infrastructure you need, to be able to drive
the economy. Thank you very much, Dr. Okengo. He has spoken a lot. Ishao, let me just ask you, about the policy reforms. What policy reforms do you think, are necessary to actually drive this economy?
Going by the theme of the summit group, competitiveness and stability. This is what is required. Competitiveness
and stability. Okay.
Reasons. We need competition in production so that we can be productive and become more productive. One concept, as far as this economy is concerned, we know we are a major producer of crude oil and we are competing in the world market. Then a refining capacity for this local content, we need competitiveness. not only from private sector, but including major public sectors of the economy, with laws, not only laws, with commitment. Professor has highlighted issues of commitment, but if we are to make competitiveness efficient in Nigerian economy via stability in general pricing, in PMS, premium motor spirit production, that is the first flash of contact, because as highlighted, if you are to put a liter of PMS at 1,030 naira, if you are to mobile yourself with 50 liters a week, you know what it means. It's simple arithmetic. Yes. So we need competitiveness so that not only Dangote is expected to produce and sell, we need other refining capacities. For stability, we need to go to the drawing board. Policy measures that can bring stability. Monetary Policy Committee, the bank, I insisted, because they are the owners of our legal tender. But it was highlighted by the World Bank that it is one of the unproductive currency in the last 9 months. Why and how? That has to be looked into, because if Naira is competing with US dollar, at what efficiency? Do we mean to devalue again consciously, or do we need to strengthen the Naira? These are conflicting policies.
But how do you strengthen the Naira?
We cut off our demand. Domestic demand come into effect. If we produce our PMS and we cannot take our Naira out to get dollar and get and import PMS, we are making Naira strong. If we can cut our health expenses going abroad, we put facilities here. Why must Nigeria train doctors, and after training them 4 or 5 years, they move out in large number in the name of getting diaspora remittances? We now canvass that we need them while our health sector is declining. Professor highlighted, for you to have an effective development, human capital development index must be positive. And that human capital development, including health. So if we are to succeed as a nation, the summit group has brought out a very broad concept for policymakers to look. And in looking at these policy measures, it's not only the federal government, the state governors. And the state governor cannot quickly adjust, because it was highlighted by the CBN governor. While subsidy was removed, revenue increased in sharing, then volatility in the forex, always after disbursement came out.
I have to pause you there so that we can reach Professor Alabi. If Professor Alabi is there talking about the 30th summit, in what way can Nigeria build on the momentum of the summit? What must stakeholders do?
Thank you very much. Yes, thank you very much. I quickly to ask that all stakeholders in the Nigerian economy, the private sector, the civil society, the industrial unions, labor unions, associations like NASIMA, small-scale industries, all the stakeholders who are affected by the current economic quagmire should take responsibility. These are the recommendations and outcomes of the 30th Nigeria Economic Summit. Good. These are the actions to be implemented. Who does what? So that we can know who are responsible for it. It's important for us to identify that. I want to challenge all leadership of various associations and stakeholders to pick up the outcome and scale it down to the level of their stakeholders to understand what are these recommendations. That's on one side, so that people understand what the group is talking all about. Number two is for all the stakeholders to also take the government, make government accountable. Government has given a statement by the president that whatever it is that comes out of it will be implemented for the betterment of Nigerian economy. Therefore, we should hold government responsible to set up implementation think tank. It is one thing to have resolutions and outcomes. It's another thing to have implementable strategies that will work. So government should create that committee or think tank of all stakeholders who will now look at these are the recommendations, how do we imbibe it? Remember I said when I started, there's need to integrate whatever are the pro-people, pro-poor outcomes of this summit into national development programs and agenda. So it's important for God to say, these are what we have, these are what we do. Number three is that issue of reform. It is, my advice to all is simple. Reform have come to stay. No two ways about it. You postpone the dim day, you will do reform one day. But one thing I want to say about, whereas the preponderance of Nigerians are going through the hardship and they are taking it as it were, leadership should also show by example in their conduct and their lifestyle and their earnings that we are all in it together. That I cannot afford. You are struggling to pay 70,000 minimum wage for a graduate, and someone somewhere is netting up 14 million naira per month because it's a political whatever it is. It is not right. Our lifestyle must reflect what we are preaching. It's also important for me to advise government at this level that the national and subnational government should sit down together and walk their talk. And for any policy you are churning out, it is important to think through. I submit, that is my personal opinion, and of course so many people will share that thought too, that in as much as we love the reform that's going on, particularly in the downstream sector and the foreign exchange market, I want to believe that we did not do due diligence. Mr. President announced removal on the very first day he took over. I was of opinion that he had a game plan, a strategic plan to douse their effect. But I want to say to you that what we have been seeing is program and policy, some as it were. You announce this, you change it. You announce it, you change it. It is not the way to go. Let's think through government policy at national and subnational level and ensure that each time we are doling out reform that will have consequences on people's lives and livelihood, we have.
Professor John,
Professor Alabi, thank you so much for your contribution there. You have raised a lot of issues that our lifestyle must reflect what we say, and the government should come up with implementation think tank. So thank you so much for your contribution this morning. Professor John Olatunji Alabi is the president and chairman of Council Institute of Classic Entrepreneurship. And also back to our studio. Unfortunately, we cannot go on with this discussion because we have another topic coming up immediately after the break. So let me just thank Dr. Emeka Okengo, a development economist analyst. Thank you so much for coming on Good Morning Nigeria.
It's a pleasure to be here.
Okay, Yusa Aliu, an economist. We want to thank you once again for coming on Good Morning Nigeria.
Thank you very much.
Well, we'll take a break now, and when we come back, we have our second topic, which is on African Biblical Leadership Initiative 2024. Stay with us.
My administration took over leadership of our country 16 months ago at a critical juncture. The economy faced many headwinds and our physical security highly impaired. We found ourselves at a distant crossroad where we must choose between two paths: reform for progress and prosperity, or carry on the business as usual and collapse. We decided to reform our political economy and defense architecture.
The federal government of Nigeria warns vandals of national assets, electricity transmission towers, cables and other facilities to desist from this act of sabotage. Vandalism is a serious crime punishable under the law. Vandalizing electrical equipment will affect millions of Nigerians, including your loved ones. Remember that national assets belong to all of us, hence the need to protect them. Report all cases of suspicious movement around electrical facilities to security agencies. When you see something, say something. This message is from the Federal Ministry of Information and National Orientation in collaboration with the National Counter-Terrorism Center, NCTC, Office of the National Security Advisor.
I think Amaka should just move out of the house. Yes.
No. Standing out of the house is not the right thing to do.
Oh, there you go again with your sentimental family stuff.
Baby, if our aim is to stop this affair, it is best achieved under our roof.
You do something terrible and you'll be acting innocent.
What are you going on about?
Don't ask me that question again. You couldn't even control yourself in the presence of our visitors.
What are you accusing me of, woman?
My son, I don't know how serious you are with my daughter, but there's something that needs to be done urgently before you move any further.
Anything, just anything, just say it. I'm ready to do anything.
There is a spell that needs to be removed.
A spell?
Family forever, the story of our lives.
The counsel of our fathers.
I will urge and advise our younger generation to use talent and brain to sort out problems, not arms.
Nigerian youths, let's build our nation together.
Nigeria means a lot to me.
And Nigeria means peaceful cohesion.
My country.
We continue to pray, and then hopefully we will come to understand that unity of purpose, unity of living together.
Our ethnic beliefs and background and culture is our strength.
Ever since the amalgamation period of 1914 to date, about 109 years ago, the people of Nigeria live very peacefully with one another.
I think diversity helps a lot to enhance robust development in Nigeria.
All over the country, you have so many ethnic groups, over 250. That is enough to tell you that this is a blessed country, and God has kept together as one indivisible entity.
Thanks for staying with us. You're still on to Good Morning Nigeria on the network service of the NTA. Let's now turn our attention to our second conversation this morning. The African Biblical Leadership Initiative, IBLI, was born in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia during a special African Union prayer breakfast by African heads of state and government in 2010.
And this was after the initial conference at Addis Ababa, and it was resolved that the annual conference should move around to other African nations.
Yes, and so in 2012, the ABLI conference was held at Kampala, Uganda. Joining us here to speak more on this is Major General Chris Olukolade, is the member 2024 ABLI International Conference National Planning Committee. General Olukolade, you are welcome to Good Morning Nigeria.
Thank you so much, and good morning, Nigerians.
It's a pleasure to have you join us. And also joining us here in the studio is Honorable Mrs. Laurentia Laraba Malam. She's a member 2024 ABLI International Conference National Planning Committee also. You're welcome to Good Morning Nigeria.
Thank you.
Okay, let's kickstart a conversation with General Olukolade. Yes. Is it Olukolade or Olukolade?
Olukolade.
Olukolade, yes, I got it. Now, let's look at the genesis of the African Biblical Leadership Initiative. Tell us about the genesis, how it all began.
Well, in 2010, there was a meeting of heads of states in Addis Ababa. And as an aside of that conference, there was this meeting, breakfast meeting of leaders of thought that were part of that conference. And the essence was to discuss value-based leadership with biblical background. And after that, it was concluded that this was a good initiative that should hold from time to time. And since then, it has held in different African capitals, such as Kigali, Accra, Uganda, Kampala, and many other places. Nigeria was actually to host it in 2020, but as a result of the COVID situation, it had to be postponed. And this year, Nigeria is hosting the conference.
Okay, tell us some of the objectives. What exactly are some of the objectives of this?
Well, as already suggested by the name, African Biblical Leadership Initiative, the essence is to have value-based leadership that trusts in the values of biblical standards in terms of people believing in the value that should inform leadership. We know we have so much of that in the Bible, and it could be a model for leaders to offer good leadership to their people. It talks of good governance, the ideas of transparency, and if you look at the theme for this year, value-based leadership, that is sourced from the scriptures in the book of Philippians chapter 4 verse 8, where it says, "Finally, my brethren, whatsoever is true, whatsoever is just, whatsoever is of good report, whatsoever is honest, think on these things. If there be any virtue," and such things kind of give us an idea of the essence of biblical leadership.
Okay, thank you so much. Let's bring in Honorable Mrs. Laurentia into this conversation. And can you tell us about the conference itself? And I'm aware it begins today. So who is attending this conference and where is it holding?
Thank you very much. The conference is holding in Abuja at the NAF Conference Center. It's supposed to kick-start this morning, opening session, arrival of dignitaries, and so on and so forth. So right now, by 9 o'clock, I think they should start, arriving. And we hope that Nigerians will key in. You heard what the General has said. We want to sensitize the public about good leadership as is entrenched in the Constitution and the Bible. By so doing, the masses, the citizens of the country will benefit from God's endowed riches and so on and so forth. And when people are happy and when people are comfortable with their leaders and with what is obtained in the country, there will be peace. And when there is peace, then there is progress and development.
So what's the goal? What do you intend to achieve with this conference now?
We intend to bring leaders together to let them know that God has created the universe and has given us all the riches to share evenly to everybody. But you can see that some leaders, some countries, the richness is there, but the people are suffering. There should be no poverty. And so this is why the organizers, the leaders then in Addis Ababa, when they sat down, they were inspired to say, look, we have a rich continent, but our people are suffering. God has blessed our continent. So what is the way forward? We lack leadership. So this is why, they started, and it has been going around as he has stated. It has gone to about 5, 6 countries now in Nigeria, and after this session, next year it will move to another country.
Okay, thank you very much, Madam. General, you talked about the value of leadership, and we know that one of the major challenges that we have in this part of the world is the problem of leadership, and everybody can attest to that. When you talk about leadership, what are the attributes of leadership that are lacking, in us, and how can we begin to reorientate, our mindset?
Well, I will take you back to the main theme of this conference in particular. It talks of value-based leadership, biblical standards. It also anchors on the scripture, which I quoted earlier, Philippians chapter 4, verse 8, where it talks of honesty, justice, virtue, purity, and love. Most of these are clearly lacking in diverse areas of leadership. And by the way, leadership is in various strata of society, right from family to business and other areas. And that's why this conference will be attracting people who've had experience in leadership, people who are in leadership, and people who are well knowledgeable about value-based leadership. It's not going to focus mainly on people in leadership at the moment. We're also going to pay attention to the future. There's going to be a youth aspect of the program, which will be a whole day. And at that, they will be influenced by people who have had experience. People invited for this conference are not just political leadership, leadership across society, including even the religious leadership. People who are in various areas of leadership are expected to be influenced by this conference. Like Honorable mentioned earlier, at the beginning it was noted to have been a very good influence that should spread. At this time, maybe it's the opportunity of Nigerians to benefit from the virtue of people who have had experience. We'll be having people speak in this conference, such as the former Chief Justice of South Africa, who is also a beneficiary of such teachings, and many others, legal luminaries, academicians, theologians, people of varied backgrounds, will be drawing from biblical examples and the virtues of leadership to share opinion and idea in this conference.
Okay, General, I want to ask, because a lot of people, when you say leadership, their main focus is usually at the topmost level, yes, the presidential level, the governorship level, or the local government or national assembly. They've forgotten that at every strata, at every level, you are also a leader. So who exactly is a leader? Because when you talk to the man on the street, don't you think that you are a leader? I say, no, our leaders. What about you? So can you just, explain what leadership is and who exactly is a leader, so that, we begin to change that all of us, in one way or the other, we are leading. You understand? I hope you get what my question is.
From your explanation, it's clear you know that leadership is a very vast subject. Vast in the sense that I think we're still learning even about it. But maybe in simple terms, a leader is someone who has influence.
Okay.
Influence that can give direction to people to achieve particular results in the interest, beginning from the family. When a child is growing, he needs the parents to show him the way of how to live in the society as found himself, to achieve particular objective of success. And the same way, even in organizations, there are people who have understanding of where society should be moving at a particular time. And they deploy that knowledge in guiding those who listen to them, people who look up to them. Anyone who can influence another is a leader. And by influence, we mean who can guide, who can correct, encourage, and give direction. And, it begins with vision. Somebody who has an idea of where we should be going. And quite often we relate that to vision. And if somebody who's going to be a leader must have vision. The Bible says, for instance, people perish when they have no vision. And if there's vision for a society, those who understand it, and that's why leadership also requires understanding. You must understand what is it to be achieved, what is it to be realized by society, by family, by government, by business outfit. And now we're seeing how can we take biblical models to influence this understanding. Because we have seen people, various leaders in the Bible who succeeded. We have seen various leaders who also failed. We have seen leaders who lead in war. We have seen leaders who lead in peacetime. And these models can be of use even in these times.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Let me bring in Honorable Laurentia into the conversation now. Is the conference open to other people of faith?
Yes, it is. You know, people have been invited, Muslim leaders, market women, the youths, the civil society. And when you call the civil society, they have mixed religious backgrounds. So everybody that can make things work for the benefit of the country is invited. It's not restricted.
Okay. So where do you think where do you think the gaps are in leadership, in Nigeria and in the Nigerian leadership model, and how should they be corrected?
I think perhaps maybe we got it wrong after the independence. In the 60s, 70s, 80s, things were done properly. Things were taught, in the home, in the school, in the society, and everybody was each other's keeper. But from the 90s, 2000, a lot has changed. You cannot correct another person's child. I don't know, that's why I said we got it wrong. We have derailed. And so the organizers, have seen that, yes, we have to come back and see where we started, where we are going, and how we can bring everybody together so that you know what is good for the country. That's why I said the civil societies, they have their followers, and when they listen to what we have to discuss today, then they'll go back. And then the youths, like General has said, we have youth assembly. They have outlined their own program on what they want and how they should, behave, and how they will interact with government to get what they want. So it's going to be a very beautiful and powerful conference for everybody to come in and, benefit from.
Okay, Madam, from what you just said now, in the past, we used to have this community lifestyle.
That's right.
That has a lot of value that you can reach out to other people. Would you say it's the global influence that has actually affected us in this country?
I want to believe that. I want to believe that because we copy things forgetting the culture, The culture, when you have, you share. Like even in the Bible, that's why we are talking about the Bible. The early Christians, didn't own anything. They shared what they had.
That's community lifestyle.
Yes. And during when we were growing up too, when you cook food, you eat in the home and then you also share to your neighbors. But with time, maybe, I don't know what affected us, and everybody is just keeping to himself. There's no good social harmony, among each others. And so this conference is saying, let us come back. Let us come back and look at, you can see the vices that, youths are, into.
Okay, thank you very
You
much.
talked about there's a youth section of the conference. Let me
That's
bring in General Olukolade into the conversation. The youths are there. They constitute 70% of Nigeria's population. So how will this summit, in its own way, address the degrading value system in our society today?
Thank you. It will be by influence. We said the essence is to influence. There will be a cross-section of youths who are already prepared. So, there will be youth corpers in attendance, students. They will form the youth assembly. At the youth assembly, they will be addressed by people who've had experience in terms of how society should be organized to achieve results. Not only that, we believe that some of them are already participating in the conference from day one. This conference will be talking of the values of justice, the value of wisdom, the value of, transparency, the value of social harmony. You heard her talking about, how society used to be organized. We'll bring up the subjects of social harmony. And apart from having listened to the speakers from day one, that day will be free for them to interact, to cross-fertilize ideas, and even interact with many speakers, and perhaps bring up their own fears. So it's the conference supposed to be all-embracing, and you will benefit from experience of people who have passed through the same way, and see which one could be adopted. The essence of this conference is to influence. We believe that those who participate should be able to influence their colleagues. With that number, something will start with the youth population.
Okay, all right, sir. Because of time, in just 30 seconds, what are your expectations? What should we expect from this conference?
From this conference, we expect that values in terms of understanding will improve, and people will be privileged to listen to those who have passed through the way. We're expecting current leaders, past leaders, will-be leaders to have contact with the idea that will be shared in this conference. And they are not just Nigerian ideas, these are global ideas. Okay. And like the question you asked earlier, what's the impact of globalization? Now, if we're talking of value-based model for Africa, what we're seeing, what we can draw that could benefit the future from the current globalization, and what we could draw from the past to have a better future.
Okay, Major General Chris Olukolade is a member 2024 ABLI International Conference National Planning Committee. Thank you so much for coming to raise awareness about the conference.
Thank you so much.
And Honorable Mrs. Laurentia Larabomalam, member 2024 ABLI International Conference National Planning Committee also. It's been a pleasure having you. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Well, that's Good Morning Nigeria for today, being the first day of the week. Thanks for joining us. I am Ademola Adeoye.
And I am Jumo Yusuf. Another interesting edition of Good Morning Nigeria awaits you tomorrow. Do have a wonderful day ahead.